In a quiet British town where life moved slowly and days looked almost the same, a young waitress worked in a small countryside cafe at the edge of the main street. Her life wasn't easy. She lived in a tiny rented room above the bakery next door, counted every pound carefully, and often skipped meals so she could pay her bills on time. Yet her heart remained soft, kind, and unexpectedly generous. She believed kindness was a currency that never lost its value, even if she herself received very little of it. Every morning, she tied her hair with a simple ribbon, put on her faded apron, and walked to the cafe just before sunrise. The cafe wasn't luxurious. It had old wooden chairs, a worn-out counter, and the scent of roasted coffee that slowly woke the town. The owner was strict and never allowed free meals or unpaid food. Rules were rules, he would say, especially when business was slow. And business was always slow. One evening, when the cafe was about to close and the chairs were already lifted halfway onto tables, the door opened softly. A man stepped inside, moving with the heavy exhaustion of someone who had walked far without rest. His clothes were worn and dusty. His hair was unkempt, and his face carried both tiredness and worry. He didn't look like someone who belonged in the little cafe. He looked like someone carrying a story too heavy to share. He glanced around silently, almost apologetically, as though he knew he had entered too late. The waitress noticed the way he held his stomach lightly, the way his eyes dropped whenever he caught the scent of food. It was clear he hadn't eaten properly for days. She saw something in him that she couldn't ignore, a quiet suffering, an invisible weight. She approached him with the same gentleness she used for scared children and lonely elders. He asked if he could have anything to eat, his voice barely audible. There was no money in his pockets. She knew the rules. She knew she could get in trouble. But something stronger than rules spoke to her, the part of her heart that always chose compassion over fear. Without hesitation, she walked to the kitchen, prepared a warm meal, and served it to him carefully. The man ate slowly, as though each bite carried memories of hunger and hope. When he finished, he looked at her with a gratitude deeper than words, nodded once, and walked out into the cold night. She didn't think about him again. To her, it was just an act of kindness, nothing more. But she didn't know that her small gesture had already begun to shift her destiny. The next morning, the cafe was unusually loud. Customers filled every corner, and everyone seemed to be talking about something important. The waitress stepped inside, confused by the sudden noise. The television above the counter played the national news. People stood around it, whispering. As she wiped tables and prepared orders, she finally turned toward the screen and froze. There on the television was the face of the hungry stranger she had fed last night. The news anchor reported that a missing billionaire, known for his vast business empire and complicated personal life, had been found wandering in the countryside after disappearing for days. His sudden disappearance had caused panic among shareholders, employees, and the media. He had reportedly left everything behind without explanation, escaping a world of pressure, betrayal, and threats. The report described how he wanted to see how people treated him when they didn't know his wealth, his position, or his influence. The waitress felt her heartbeat in her throat. The man she had fed wasn't just a lost wanderer. He was a man whose name was known across the country. A man whose net worth could rebuild the entire town. A man with more power and influence than she could ever imagine. Yet when she saw him last night, he had been hungry, fragile, tired, and painfully human. Her hands trembled slightly, and for a moment, she wondered whether she had done something foolish. The cafe owner was already pacing, worried that she might have broken rules without even realizing it. But somewhere inside her, she felt a strange sense of peace. She had helped someone who needed help, not for money, not for reward, but because the world needed more kindness. Later that afternoon, a sound outside the cafe made everyone turn. Expensive cars approached the small building, their shine reflecting the soft sunlight. The doors opened, and security personnel stepped out. Then the man walked in, now dressed in a tailored suit, looking confident, powerful, and completely transformed from the man she had seen the night before. The entire cafe fell silent. He walked straight toward the waitress. She felt her breath stop, unsure whether she was in trouble or about to face something far beyond her imagination. But what happened next was nothing she could have predicted. The man expressed his gratitude with sincerity that cut through the silence of the room. He explained how her kindness had reached him in his darkest moment. She fed him when he had nothing. She helped him without knowing who he was. She had offered dignity when he had been stripped of everything. He then offered her the chance to change her life forever. Whether it was a higher-paying job, a funded education, or partnership in a new café he planned to open, the choice was hers. For the first time in her life, she saw a door open toward a future that wasn't heavy with worry, a future shaped by her own kindness. But the story did not end there. In the months that followed, the billionaire quietly started helping families and struggling individuals in the little town, all in her name. Every act of generosity traced back to a single moment in the café, when a waitress chose compassion over rules, humanity over fear. Her simple act of kindness became the spark that changed many lives, including her own. And she finally understood that kindness never disappears. It echoes in ways we cannot imagine, returning to us in the most unexpected and beautiful forms.